I'm thrilled to see you've made it to our final video in our 3-video series. So let's review. Tyler introduced the problem of hundreds of millions of people still living without reliable access to electricity. Adrian then explained one of the main engineering solutions, which is off-grid solar systems that can generate, store, and distribute electricity without connecting to a national power grid. But even when the technology works, one major question remains. Who's going to pay for it? Unfortunately, solar panels do not fall out of the sky for free. Last time I watched the news, at least it wasn't happening. And raising everyone's taxes until the problem disappears probably would not be a very popular financial strategy. But to introduce myself, my name's Austin, and I'm the third and final member for the Rocky Balboas. And in this final video, I'm going to explain what off-grid solar costs, how families and companies can pay for it, and why the financial design of these systems can be just as important as the electrical design. For any high school students interested in STEM, this is a very important point. Engineers do not only ask, can we build it? We also have to ask, can people realistically use it, maintain it, and afford it? First, on a quick note, whenever I mention money, I'll be referring to the US dollars, so the numbers are easier to compare. A small solar home system can provide lighting, phone charging, and enough electricity for basic devices. A larger system may also support fans, televisions, refrigerators, or even smaller business equipment. The problem is that even a relatively small upfront cost can be completely inaccessible to a household living on a limited and inconsistent income. Now, if you scale that system up from one home to an entire village, a community microgrid may require solar panels, batteries, charge controllers, inverters, distribution lines, installation labors, replacement parts, and trained technicians. That can become expensive very quickly. But the proper comparison is not between solar and doing nothing. It's between solar and the alternatives. Extending a conventional electrical grid into an isolated area can require miles of transmission or distribution lines, utility poles, transformers. You get the point. Especially in mountainous, forested, or sparsely populated regions, the cost per household will become economically unfeasible. This is why off-grid solar is the more practical option. It does not eliminate the cost, but it can avoid the enormous infrastructure expense of extending a national grid into every remote settlement. One of the most common financing tools for smaller household systems is referred to as the pay-as-you-go solar, or PayG. PayG works somewhat like a prepaid phone plan or a finance purchase. Instead of paying the full price of the system at once, the customer makes a small initial payment. The company installs a solar panel, battery, lights, and the related equipment, and then the customer makes smaller payments over time, frequently through mobile money. Depending on the agreement, the household may eventually own the system after completing its payments. This matters because many customers do not have a conventional credit histories, bank accounts, or access to normal loans. PayG allows companies to evaluate repayment through the solar account itself instead of relying on the banking system used in wealthier countries. Sun King, one of the largest companies operating under this model, states that some customers can make flexible payments starting at about 19 cents a day. For larger community microgrids, financing is usually more complicated, and these projects may combine private investment, government support, international development funding, nonprofit involvement, or just payments from the community. So PayG is not a universal answer for every microgrid. However, it determines an important engineering principle. When an upfront cost is what's creating your barrier, redesigning your payment structure can make the same technology accessible. And this is not just a theoretical business model. According to the International Energy Agency, approximately 43 million people in sub-Saharan Africa were using solar home systems as their primary source of electricity in 2023, and another 30 million were using them as backup power. Private financial institutions are also beginning to treat those customers as real investments. In 2025, Sun King completed a $156 million financing deal in Kenya. The deal uses future customer repayments to support financing for approximately 1.4 million solar products and smartphones. And that's an important distinction. This is no longer only charitable funding. Banks and investors are becoming involved because they see a functioning market with customers, repayment records, and a long-term demand. For students who may be considering majors like electrical engineering, finance, data science, or systems engineering, projects like this require that all these fields must work together. We have to have an engineer who designs the circuit, another one who designs the size of the battery. We have to have someone who must analyze the customer demand, and someone who determines whether the financial model is survivable. The economic value also extends beyond the electricity being sold. When a community gains dependable power, shops may reopen after sunset. Food vendors can refrigerate products instead of losing them to spoilage. Residents can charge phones locally. Clinics can operate equipment and store temperature-sensitive medicines. And students can study after dark. This is sometimes described as the multiplier effect, where one infrastructure investment creates benefits across several parts of the community at the same time. So therefore, electricity is not only a product, it is a platform that is going to allow a community to grow by allowing other activities to happen. This is where the problem becomes larger than solar panels. A technically successful system can affect the education, public health, communication, employment, and local business developments. However, a serious analysis has to also acknowledge what is not working perfectly. Researchers from the University of Oxford analyzed long-term data from approximately 1,000 off-grid solar home systems in sub-Saharan Africa. Their findings reported that about 77% of the households reduced their average daily electricity use beyond their first year, with an average demand falling by about 1/3 at the end of the second year. Some reductions may be connected to affordability, but the researchers also found declining use among households that were not experiencing payment problems. That suggests that there's another possibility. Some systems may not have matched what the customers actually needed. A system can be oversized, undersized, too expensive, too difficult to repair, or poorly matched the way a family uses electricity. And this is why development cannot be the final step. Engineers have to evaluate long-term usage, battery degradation, maintenance availability, replacement costs, and whether the customer can continue receiving useful service after the initial installation. There's also an equity concern. As a private investment increases, companies may naturally prefer customers who are the easiest to reach and most likely to repay. That could leave the poorest or most isolated communities behind, the exact communities SDG 7 is supposed to reach. Solving that problem will require cooperation between engineers, governments, investors, and the communities themselves. So across this 3-video series, we followed one problem through the 3 connected stages. Initially, Tyler explained the scale of global energy poverty and why traditional electrical grids cannot realistically reach every remote community. Then, Adrian shows how off-grid solar panels, batteries, and microgrids provide a technical solution. And in my video, we examine the economic side, how these systems are financed, how PAYG reduces the upfront barrier, and why system sizing and long-term affordability matter. The main lesson is that access to electricity is not solved by one invention alone. The solar panel can generate electricity, but it needs storage, controls, maintenance, financing, and a design that reflects what the community will actually use. This is what sustainable engineering requires. Not simply building something that works in a laboratory, but creating a system that can continue working for real people under real economic conditions. For any high school students considering a future in STEM, problems like this are not already finished. Battery life still needs improvements, installation costs still need to fall, financing has to become more equitable, and systems must become easier to repair, operate, and adapt. The UN Sustainable Development Goal 7 calls for the affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for everyone. Reaching this goal will require electrical engineers, but it will also require programmers, financial analysts, policymakers, technicians, researchers, future students, and politicians who are willing to work across all of these boundaries. Affordable and clean energy is not only about generating power. It is about designing a system that gets power to the people who need it and keeps it there. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.